Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces here tonight. If I have not had the opportunity yet to greet you personally, Shalom Aleichem. My name is Yehuda Dukes, and on behalf of JNet, I would like to welcome you to our 6th annual Evening of Appreciation, Tafshin Ayin Tes. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time, I hope that you will be inspired by the experience here tonight. And I would also like to welcome our volunteers who hopefully we got the live stream up and working by now, who are joining us via jnet.org/dinner5779, which we are hopefully not still experiencing technical difficulties getting live. This year's theme is Kihem Chayenu, that the Torah is our life. It has a double meaning. Torah is both our life and also shows us in every aspect of what we do how to live. And so let's hear in the words of our Rabbi a little bit about what it means that the Torah is Chayenu, our life.
Das ist der Unterschied von Lahavdul, von anderen Völkern, wenn geht zu sehr Emunah. Ist sie verbunden mit besonderen Passierungen vom Leben, so kann durchgehen durch Goyim oder Scheus oder noch längere Zeiten, was also nicht verbunden mit einer speziellen Anweisung. Aber man darf sich vielen Dafke beifen, mit Juchor, beifen mit Suyom, bis als man sagt, dass es wird angerufen Chayenu. Aber das ist unser Leben, ist doch nicht scheiche sagen, bei lebendiger Sache. Aber das werden nicht wie bestimmte Zeiten von Jahr. Und sie da in der Ruf heftig has verschollen. Danach hat es auch an Mechodosh, nur Chaim ist ein Ingen, was nimschach. Das wird vorgesetzt, on kein heftig, on schei, on kein Überreißung has verschollen. Und darf kein Asami nehmen das Leben Horuim Lishmo. Wo der Fuhne sechet verstandig, wie bald mir am sagt, dass das ist Chayenu, als nicht auch keine Passierung, keine Inyan, zieh das bei Meise oder bei Dibur oder bei Schove von Aiden, was soll nicht sein verbunden mit der Teile. Und wie Torah ist auch angerufen, Hero, soll nicht haben in der Ruf an Anweisung in Torah von Torah. Aber das rechiert wie Kloß, was mir sagt, Akol Masecha L'Shem Shammai. Als was für ein Meister soll nicht sein. Wo da meint sich der Mischner nie der Diuk von Loschen Meister und mit der Miute Dibur und Machshove. Dort das meint man Kolb, die alle Unionen von einem Menschen, was doch Dame le Ellie, darf doch sein in der Schleimus, bedug mir wie der Odom ha Ellie ist, darf das sein, alle Meischen, wo kein Unterschied in einem Leben, aber das soll sein, L'Shem Shammai. A viele in der Sache, was hört, Abchira al-Pishul Chonorach, und wie wird tun, wird das Maßim sein zu L'Shem Shammai, tut das nie der Fall, was das Bechet berotzen Atzmei, nur das Bechet der Fall, was wie Garis gebracht in Shulchan Aruch. Wenn man geht zu Absak Haloch, hat ihm gegeben in der Ruf der Pchire.
To sum up the clip of the Rebbe, the Torah is, when we call something our life, Chayenu, it has to be something which is alive. Life doesn't cease even for a moment. If there are breaks, it's not true life. And so the Rebbe tells us that when it comes to Torah, Torah is different than any other philosophy or other religions which have a philosophy, where there are breaks in what it teaches you. Whereas Torah, every single aspect of our lives, from the moment we get up in the morning until the moment that we go to sleep at night, whether it's in our thoughts, in our speech, or in our action, every element of our lives is dictated by the Torah. And in that way, the Torah is chayenu, the Torah is our life. It doesn't stop. There isn't a moment, no matter when, that we are separate from the Torah. And so it's so important for us to recognize that when we get on the phone with our chavrusa, we are not just teaching them a concept, even teaching them something that they're supposed to do, but we're connecting them to something which is alive, to something which is life, to something which is going to guide them and feed their spiritual lives like a fish in the water every moment. So thank you to all you volunteers who, as Hasidim, are connecting people to their source of life and bringing Torah to all corners of the globe. In the spirit of appreciation, this is an evening of appreciation, we owe a great Akaras HaTov to Mr. George Rohr and the Rohr Family Foundation and to Rabbi Ketlarsky, who for the grant and the foresight to establish JNet some 14 years ago, and for ensuring that it continues to grow. Regretfully, Rabbi Ketlarsky was supposed to be here tonight to thank and share some thoughts with you in person, but as his amazingly dedicated job demands, he can be called away at moment's notice to attend to some very important and hopefully happy occasions as well. And tonight he was called away at the last minute, and so he thankfully has shared a video message with us, and here, Bez Hashem, this one will work.
Adding Mesibe just days away from 25 years from Gimel Tammuz, which clearly shows that Zari B'Chaim is Afhu B'Chaim. For the Rebbe's Miftzah Torah, which is most undoubtedly the most important of the Rebbe's Miftzahim. It is very, very important that we focus for a moment on what the Rebbe wants from us. The Rebbe really wants from us that we should reach each and every Jew. Und als Chassidim soll man sie bringen, nentet zum Ebersten und nentet zum Rebbe. To bring jeden to the Rebbe. What you are doing is bringing people closer to the Eberste, because there's no better way and no more important way than through limited Torah. So it isn't that I give you a yashikeich in the name of Merkez Linyani Chinuch for the time and the effort and the energy that you expend in this, because a yashikeich is not necessary, and a yashikeich doesn't suffice, because you're not doing it because somebody's asking you to do it. You're doing it because you're mekusharim to the Rebbe. And als mekusharim, this is what a mekusha does. A mekusha does what the Rebbe wants. And the Rebbe said, how is his kashas? His kashas is through learning my Torah. So even if you learn with someone a Parsha Chumash, or how to read Ivre, or a Blat Gemara, it's inevitable that during that period of time, you're also the amount of word for Rebbe, meret wegen dem Rebbe, and this is the emes Zare B'Chaim. In the office here, we're on a campaign now to cover the 25 years of Tefeach al Manas Latfiach, to make Balabatim and bring other people to do a mitzvah. So it would be right that you get your chavrusa, to get another individual, either to come to a shir, or to put on tefillin, or to do something, light candles, to do something, l'schus Gimel Tammuz. In this week's Chitas, we read about the menorah. And it says, Kashatziva Hashem es Moshe, Aaron did everything. What does Rashi say? Laget shifchei shalarin shaloishina. He didn't change. Is that really a shvach on Aaron shaloishina? He heard something from the Eibishter, and he did it the same way. He did it. So those that say that the same way that he did it the first day by the Chanukas HaMishkan, that was the same the way he did it Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av, the day of his Histalkus. Goes by so many years, and you could think 38, 39 years, and you could think that there comes a moment that he has his own day, he can do what he wants. It's not a shvach on Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen definitely didn't change. So I once saw from Magidei Emes, it says, Lahagit shvach Aaron shaloishina, with the same chayas, with the same Ibegegebenkeit, with the same bittul that he did it the first day. That is the same way he did it the last day. So if I could express a bracha to each and every one of us, myself included, that in everything that we do from the Rebbe, it should be shaloishina. The same way we did it when we were zeicher that the Rebbe was here, begashmis, b'chaim chayusa b'al mo'adein. Today in these last regoyim of Golus, because the Rebbe promised us that this is the last dirt of Golus and the first dirt of Geula, we should do it with the same Ibegegebenkeit, with the same energy, with the same warmth. So I want to, even though it's not necessary, to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank the staff of JNet, especially Rabbi Yudi Dukes, for his time and effort, and wish him also that he should do it with the same energy that he did it the day he started. And David should give us that we should talk it before Gimel Tammuz, we should be reunited with the Rebbe, and then you'll be able to walk over to the Rebbe, as I'm sure that you do even today, that when you go to the Yoel, you give the Rebbe the Psura Teva of the person that you're learning with, the skadmas in the learning, and how you find what you could do better. But we should all give the Rebbe Psura Tevas. But the Rebbe will come back, as it's Hashem, before Gimel Tammuz, you'll be able to walk over to him directly, and he'll give out dollars and said, Zayin HaTorah Chadoshim Itei Teitzei. And when you walk over to the dollars, you'll be able to give the Rebbe a duch. Here, Rebbe, I did in your Miftzah Torah, and which is also Miftzah Avos Yisrael, and it's all the other Miftzahim that there are. Say, Rebbe, here, I did what you want, and I kept as Hafu B'chaim, because I was Zari B'chaim. Hatzlocha Rabba and Agezund and Zumer. I am sorry I'm not able to be there because I have an out-of-town wedding tonight of a balabas that I must be at, but my heart and mind is with you. Hatzlocha Rabba L'chaim.
I would like to thank Rabbi Kotlarski for everything he does, for giving me the privilege of being able to do this shlichus, and always encouraging us to do more and more. Like Rabbi Kotlarski mentioned, we will be having a special Tefeach Al Manas La'Tfiach campaign for Gimel Tammuz to try and inspire our chavrusas to get others to also do a mitzvah. We'll be sending out information about that in the near future. We are also starting on working with a new division in Eretz Yisrael, and hope to have it started in honor of Gimel Tammuz this year. And through the constant inspiration from Rabbi Kotlarski, Baruch Hashem, Miftzat Limudat Torah has been growing. Did you know that you are now part of a network of more than 11,000 members from over 80 countries, learning in 8 different languages, and that there are more than 100 people being set up each month? This doesn't all happen on its own, so I want to take a moment to thank our dedicated staff for all their effort. I would like to have a special thank you to our administrators, Mrs. Adel Zirkind and Basi Kessler. Our coordinators, Yossi Cohen, Levi Meyer, Zilanit Chamish, Brielle Dahan, and Daniela Jabril. And muchas gracias to Rabino Chai Kohan, our extremely dedicated director of the Spanish division and online classes. You guys have taken your jobs as a shlichus and go above and beyond to help make learning happen all over the world. I also want to take a moment to appreciate all of you who help us out financially, and especially our monthly donors. Without you, we cannot do the amazing work that JNet does. But finally, the main reason that JNet is possible to exist is because of the dedication of all of you volunteers here in this room. Just last year, you collectively learned more than 50,000 hours of Torah affecting lives all over the world. In your journal, you'll be able to see some of that effect with in the featured Chavrusa section and with all the ads dedicated by your Chavrusas in your honor. Yasher Kach. On a more sober note, I want to take a moment to ask you all to daven for a very dedicated JNet volunteer, Rabbi Avraham Keller, a father of 8 Kenai Nahara, who recently suffered a serious stroke. Rabbi Keller would always let me know every time that he would finish a perek of Gemara with his chavrusa. And we ask Hashem that the schus of his learning with his chavrusa Eliezer from Annapolis, Maryland, for the past 12 years, should bring Avram and Shter Nesara a complete and quick refuah shlema. And now I want to say a special thank you to our a division in Australia. We know that the Chatzi Kadra Tachten, the lower half of the world, is one of the furthest places, and that part of Yafutzu Ma'nesacha Chutza, of the Chassidus and Torah reaching the furthest points of the world, is part of what we need to do in order to bring Mashiach, and they are doing it down under Rabbi Yossi Roddel, Rabbi Dovi Wolf, and Mrs. Dvor Rachel Herzberg. Yasher Kayach. And now for a little message and feedback from one of their chavrusas in Australia.
Shalom, JNet. My name is Rael Codron. I divide my time working as a rural generalist. That's a type of doctor in the Alice Springs Hospital. I've lived away from Jewish communities for more than 15 years. In 2016, I learned of the existence of an organization called Chabad of Rural and Remote Australia. And it was the first time in a long time that I felt connected to something bigger, larger than myself. And when my grandmother Mima passed away, and I was too remote in this town, Tennant Creek, to return for a funeral, I arranged to learn on the phone in her merit for that hour with the Rabbi Yossi Roddel of Chabad Rara. And it was then that he introduced me to JNet. So things moved quickly from my interview and to meet in my Chevruta Rafi Goodman, who's a most wonderful, learned, insightful family man who found the time in his busy week with his work as an electrical engineer and looking after his family with 4 kids to learn with me. And we've learned regularly for more than a year already. We learn Chumash with Rashi, and recently we completed the Megillat Esther with commentary, something both of us had never done. I look forward to my Chevruta every week. because it's time set aside for Jewish learning, which is something that every individual should do. And JNet has given me this wonderful opportunity to fulfill this mitzvah in this most remote location, with someone who's not only my age, but funny and friendly, well-learned and inspirational. I can honestly say that the combination of JNet learning and a connection to Chabad of Avraham has inspired my Jewish practice. I think my home is the only strictly kosher home in literally thousands of kilometers. I drove 100 kilometers to tovel my cutlery and crockery in a creek. And this year, with Chabad Rara, I hosted at my home a Purim Seudah, and we read the Megillah and fulfilled the mitzvot. And also at my home, 2 large seders.
Hi, my name is Rabbi Goodman. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm 39 years old. And I've been involved with JNet now for just over a year. A friend of mine who does JNet suggested I get involved, as there's quite a few people here in Australia looking for learning partners for chavrusas. And I decided I'd give it a go. And I've been very happy I've done so. I've got a fantastic chavrusa. The fellow's name is Rael Kodron. I'm loving being involved with JNet. It's just fantastic, and I really suggest anyone who has the time or to make the time to learn with someone. There are people out there who don't have access to Torah, they're in a remote location, or they're starting from scratch. Please get involved. It's really good, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm glad I got involved. So continued hatzlacha to JNet and all its people that are involved.
We also had a Lag BaOmer party, and Rafi was the guest speaker because it was our Chevruta night, and so he called in and became our guest speaker for the crowd. And actually the host of Lag BaOmer is a young Jewish guy who I recently connected with, and subsequently he's bought a set of tefillin, and I taught him how to put it on, and so he puts on his tefillin daily, and he's recently applied to start learning with JNet, with a JNet Chevruta too. And JNet has been a real catalyst for this Jewish explosion in the remote Australian outback.
Being that I work in the professional world, you don't always get so many shlichas and mifsoim opportunities. JNet really afforded me this opportunity to get involved with the Rebbe's shlichas, Rebbe's mifsoim, on a weekly basis, really from the comfort of my own home.
I want to give a massive yashar koach and thank you to JNet, the workers, the volunteers and the donors who make this amazing organization and project possible. And I hope that you really understand that you're contributing to real, meaningful changes in people's lives.
It's really amazing when people can have that effect. And it also seems that the Goodmans come from good stock. And it's now my honor to introduce Rafi's brother, who is a shliach in Chabad of the Beaches, Rabbi Ellie Goodman, who has experienced the effect of a JNet volunteer in his community, Rabbi Ellie Goodman.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Good evening. That was my brother down under in Australia. It's good to see he's doing good things. I have to come all the way to the JNet event to see what my brother's up to back home in Australia. I've got a good report to give to my mother now. Rabbi Jukes, the Goodmans are taking over JNet. You got to watch out. I'd like to share a thought that I share with my community over Shavuos. Shavuos is about receiving the Torah with joy. JNet is about teaching and learning Torah with joy. So I want to share this thought. It's brought down in Gemara, in Menachos, a very profound Talmudic tale. I'll say it in English. says Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav that when Moshe Rabbeinu ascended on high, after receiving the Torah on Har Sinai, he found HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he found the Holy One, blessed be He, tying crowns on the letters of the Torah. Now there are seven letters in the Torah that have crowns. Those little lines that look like crowns on top of a number of the letters. And Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Master of the universe, Rabbi Shalom, who is preventing you from giving the Torah without these crowns, without these additions? What is lacking in the words, the holy words of the Torah, that we need to have these crowns on top of the letters? And Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, there is a man who is destined to be born many, many generations later. His name is Akiva ben Yosef. And he is destined to derive from every thorn, meaning from every crown, not just the crown, but each line of the crowns. He's destined to come up with mounds and mounds of different halachas and different types of teaching from every single one of those crowns. So Moshe Rabbeinu was so impressed that he'll be a future rabbi. Not only will he learn from the letters, but from the crowns of the letters, he's going to come up with mounds of innovation and different halachas. So Moshe Rabbeinu asked and said, Master of the universe, Rabbi Shalom, I would like to see this man. So in a classic Back to the Future, Moshe finds himself 1,600 years in the future. And he's sitting in the 8th row in Rabbi Akiva's study hall. And Rabbi Akiva is teaching Torah to the students. And lo and behold, as this is a famous tale in the Gemara, Moshe is listening closely in the 8th row, and he doesn't understand the word. And he's dejected. It says his strength waned, and his energy departed from him. He was demoralized. He couldn't understand what Rabbi Akiva was teaching. This is Moshe Rabbeinu. But when Rabbi Akiva came to a novel interpretation, one of his students asked him, Rabbi Akiva, how do you know this halacha? So Rabbi Akiva says that this halacha was transmitted Moshe Misinai. All of a sudden, Moshe Rabbeinu hears that, and his mind is put at ease. Now, this story seems to be an absurd story. What does it mean Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't understand Rabbi Akiva's lecture? Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah. He had the best Rosh Yeshiva, the best teacher. He had Hashem himself. What does it mean he didn't understand Rabbi Akiva's lecture? Furthermore, as we know, it said that every student in the future will be mechadeh something new. It says that this was something revealed to Moshe on Har Sinai. So what is even more stranger is, when Moshe didn't understand what was going on, why was Moshe so upset? What, he had an ego? That he had to hear, I don't understand what's going on, and now I hear my name, now I'm happy. Can you imagine? An average person doesn't understand, and the lecturer says at the very end, you know where I got this from? From this particular person's book, and that's you sitting in the row over there, even though you don't understand any of the lecture, but your name is mentioned, so I'm famous, that's good enough for me. But we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was an honor. He was the most humblest person on earth. Why would he care if his name was mentioned? What's going on over here? So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe, in Parsha Shmini, in Tafshin Chavav, gives a beautiful explanation. It says what bothered Moshe Rabbeinu was not Rabbi Akiva's brilliance, nor did Moshe Rabbeinu have a hard time understanding the lecture. He grasped all the ideas. What caused Moshe to have the most pain listening in the 8th row in that particular lecture was something that Moshe excelled in. Moshe realized, and we just started now again Pirkei Avos, the first chapter, and we read over there in Pirkei Avos, it says Moshe received the Torah from Sinai, and then he gave it over to Yeshua, and Yeshua to the Zkanim to the Nevi'im. And the question is obviously asked, why did Moshe receive the Torah from Sinai? He didn't receive it from Sinai. He received it from Hashem. We mention all the leaders that it was passed down to. Why does it say Moshe received from Sinai? is teaching us that where did Moshe learn the number one ingredient to becoming a student and to learn Torah properly is from Sinai. Sinai was the smallest mountain. Sinai represented humility. And Moshe Rabbeinu realized the number one ingredient to learn, whether it's on JNet or whether it's any other way where a person learns Torah, you have to have humility. He knew that was the number one thing. Obviously, it's important to be smart, it's important to be wise, and all these other character traits. But the number one character trait in order to learn Torah and to receive is that you have to have humility. Sharpness, IQ, creativity, they're all important, but they're secondary. So when Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting in Rabbi Akiva's class, he heard a brilliant lecture. He heard Rabbi Akiva, the brilliant teacher, the charismatic orator, the extraordinary scholar, the maestro of Torah of that generation, the spiritual giant. And he was listening and listening, and he said, the man is brilliant. But where is the humility? Is Rabbi Akiva a chassid? Does he also have a Rebbe? Does he teach with humility? Or it's all coming from him? So then, when one of the students asked Rabbi Akiva, where did you get this novel interpretation? He said it's a halacha min Moshe Sinai. So then Moshe Rabbeinu says, I can see Rabbi Akiva is a chassid. He also has a Rebbe. He also has humility because he's willing to say, this is not mine. This is all coming from Moshe Rabbeinu at the very, very top. And that is the number one ingredient. And that was why Moshe Rabbeinu was able to relax. And as the Rebbe says in the Sicha, Hata Rebbe is this Ashva Daita. That Rabbi Akiva was able to show that he also understood that humility was paramount. And he was like a chassid. He was a chassid. He realized that he was receiving from the generations and the generations before that and the generations before that. And that is why JNet is so important. There are many organizations. I live in Long Beach, Long Island, and I come across many organizations, many good organizations. They teach a lot of Torah. There are groups on Facebook and on Google and on WhatsApp, and there are many opportunities for people to learn Torah throughout the world. But what JNet has to offer is that JNet has a leader. And as Rabbi Kadlowski mentioned earlier, our inspiration is the Rabbi. And whether you're teaching simple Hebrew, or you're teaching Gemara, you're teaching Mishnah, you're teaching Chumash, whatever you're teaching, the concept of Rebbe comes through. And it's only through this organization, the JNet organization of Chabad, that you're able to give that message across. Because you're able to give that humility that is required for people to grow and grow and grow. They're not just learning something intellectual. They're not learning something just godly. It's more than that. They have to realize that this is coming from a higher source, from something so special. So Rebbe goes through every single one of you. When you teach, no matter what you teach, the concept of Rebbe is coming through to that person in Alice Springs. As you can see, what does he use his house for? Lag BaOmer events. He's a Lubavitcher. Who uses their home for Lag BaOmer events in Alice Springs? I've never been to Alice Springs. I lived in Melbourne most of my life. Alice Springs, there's nothing there in Alice Springs, let me tell you. I don't know why he's there. He's a doctor. He's saving lives. There's nothing there in Alice Springs. A few Jews. But he's going out of his way, and he is acting like a chassid. So I guess my brother did a good job with it. Because he understands it's not just to learn Torah so he can finish us. So he can finish the Mishnayos. He can tell all his friends that he finished Chameshei Chumshei Torah. But he realizes that from the studying that he's getting at JNet, he now needs to give over to others. That is what humility is all about. That is what JNet has to offer. And that is what us Hasidim have to give over to our Chavrusas. And I want to share that not only am I inspired by what's going on in Alice Springs, but in my community, there is an individual that was also inspired. I have a few people in my community over here, but he's one of our very best. No doubt about it. I think they'll agree. He learned over the past year or so with an individual. His name is Mason Fine, Menachem Ben Dov. And he is an extraordinary individual together with his wife Nancy. A great, great couple. And I think that the learning that he's been receiving has really filtered through such a way that he himself also shares and inspires others in our community. So without any further ado, enough hearing from me, we want to hear from the real heroes that participate in the JNet and learn in JNet. So I'd like to call upon Mason Fine to come over here and share with us a few words.
Thank you, Rabbi Goodman. I'd like to just share a few thoughts I have about my experiences with JNet. At the urging of Rabbi Goodman, I began the journey with JNet a little over a year ago. I've been interested in Tanya for some time because on some level it's saying to me. I tried reading it on my own, but I found it way too difficult to understand. I had far more questions than answers. But as I found out, having a study partner made Tanya far more a part. I started my weekly Sunday sessions slowly and reluctantly. The beginning texts of Tanya are difficult to understand, and I wasn't sure what questions to ask without appearing ignorant to the person on the other end of the phone whom I'd never met. However, my Harusa guided me through each chapter of Tanya with patience and insights. It went a little bit like this. I read, he explained passages. I read some more. He asked me questions. And honestly, most of the time I didn't have an answer. Over a period of several months, we began to form a friendship. The real breakthrough happened, however, around mid-October and November, when football season was in full swing. I asked if he liked football. Now, I'm neither a Giants fan or a Jets fan. My football team is the Denver Broncos, having spent most of my life in Colorado. Talking together, I found out my teacher was a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Now, if you followed football last year, you know the Broncos were doing poorly. The Kansas was heading for an undefeated season. I was immediately converted to a Kansas fan. Each week we began our study session. We would take some time to talk football. For a few moments each Sunday, before diving into the intricacies of Tanya, we were just two guys talking sports. Oddly enough, around the same time, my Tanya sessions really began to speak more deeply to me. The sessions, as I like to say, started to get inside me. What does that mean? It's difficult for me to explain. But the Tanya concepts started to change me from the inside out. I want to read two passages that help me make that change. At such time during the Shema, the prayer, when the love of God burns in the heart of the enemy, evil in the left part of his heart, the animal soul's principal area of manifestation, is subjected to and is nullified from the goodness, i.e. the love of Hashem. It spreads into the right part of the heart, where the divine soul is manifest, and the Hakma being Das, faculties in the brain which are bound in the meditation of the greatness of the Ein Sof. The chapter goes on towards the end. The Alter Rebbe says, the discussion of the mastery over his animal soul has thus far been centered on matters pertaining to man's relationship with God. It now moves to another area. So too it matters between man and his fellow man. The Benjamin will not grant expression in thought, speech, or action to any evil feelings toward his fellow. As soon as there arises from his heart to his mind any animosity or hatred, Chas v'shalom, a jealousy, anger, or a grudge, and the like, we are barring them from his mind and we're refusing even to think of them. The concepts in these passages were life-changing. It changed my davening. I concentrated on holding onto the godly spark from Shema to Shema, from morning until night. But what really got to me was working on my interactions with people. As soon as there arises from his heart to his mind any animosity or hatred or jealousy or anger or grudge, I'm not saying I'm perfect now. I am more conscious of the mistakes I make and work with greater determination on not making them again. It's changed how we interact with everyone. Strangers, friends, family. I can't provide concrete examples. I can say I'm more open, more accepting, more empathetic. It feels like my godly soul's been lit from inside, like the flame is working its way upward and outward. I owe these changes to my Harusa. Tanya is a difficult text. There are no endearing stories to break up the dialogue. Instead, my Harusa has helped me bring the text to life. At this time, I'd like to ask my Harusa, Moshe Goodman, to please come up to the podium. Moshe and I have never met, though we live only 20 miles apart, 25 miles apart. We speak on the phone every Sunday. Moshe, thank you for taking an hour out of your time each Sunday to work with me through a very difficult text this year. Your dedication and devotion has changed my life in ways that you'll never know. I hope we can continue to study Hasidus for many years. Oh, and may Kansas fix its defense this year so that they're able to win the Super Bowl.
Thank you so much, Mason. Moshe, I'd like to ask you to stay here for a moment. It's really so amazing to me when I see a chavrusa that develops such a beautiful connection. And Moshe and Mason, and again, like you heard Mason say, this is the first time that they've actually met in person after a year of studying. And just want to congratulate them on the study that they've done. And we'll segue from this into our Siyum presentation. And so I'd like to congratulate both of you on the completion of 35 prakim of Tanya. Congratulations to both of you. This time, we would also like to acknowledge the learning accomplishments of several of you here tonight. Be aware that this is just a representation of some of you. It's amazing the amount of learning, and the more feedback that we get from you about any specific learning accomplishments gives us the opportunity to stop for a moment and recognize that there is two elements to our learning. There is the specific study that we are doing, and then there's also the relationship which is happening, the life of Torah, and also the way that the Torah shows us our life. It's the content and the relationship, and it's all chayenu, our life. So, without further ado, I would like to present these certificates of accomplishment to the following individuals. Basi. And at this time, I would also like to take the opportunity to greet a volunteer who has traveled all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, to be here tonight to meet her chavrusa for the first time, Mrs. Leah Portnoy and Mrs. Linda Kogan. Congratulations on completing a year of Parshas HaShavua. Mrs. Chani Dubov and from here in Brooklyn, and Mrs. Barbara Nevin from Excelsior, Minnesota, on completing 5 years of Parshas HaShavua. We would also like to congratulate Ms. Bryna Telsner and Ms. Marlene Dowling from Thornhill, Ontario, on completing Pirkei Avos and Parshas HaShavua. And now for the men, when you hear your names, you could please come and approach the podium. Rabbi Itcha Zalmanov from Brooklyn, and Mr. Rafael Rose, also from Brooklyn, on completing also 34 prakim of Tanya. Yasher Kach. Rabbi Shlomo Sirota and Mr. Adam Kamen from Austin, Texas. Also, you can read the featured member article, the featured chavrusa article in the journal about them on completing Perek HaMafkid of Baba Metzia. Rabbi Shimon Goldenberg and Mr. Shmuel Yaakov Weiss from San Diego, California, on completing 14 prakim of Tanya. Rabbi Shlomi Stark and Mr. Dylan Feinberg from Taipei City, Taiwan, on completing 6 simanim of Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And finally, Harav Mordechai Garari and Mr. Zev Zalman Shulman from Cliffside Park, New Jersey, on completing Masechta Brachas. Please come up to the podium. Very grateful to Rabbi Garari, who has joined us tonight and will be completing a siyum on Masechta Saita for us, and has taken the time where he usually gives a shir to come and share this Masechta and make this a Sudas mitzvah for us here tonight with the completion of a Masechta Gemara.
Actually, today is also a theme for the Rabbi learner and the Sikh's Torah. But you think they see him and the Sikh's Satan, but it is in the Satan that we learn together with my beloved Havusa, and we are now about to complete it. In general, before we start the scene, I wanted to tell you that you should know that this partnership, this Havusa, is eternal. This is the strongest, most valuable partnership. It says that a person is asked, first of all, the Torah we just learned, ethics of the fathers. And it says the Torah is with you, protects you all your life, on your last journey, even at the time of this amazing. Give a look again in the sixth theory of ethics of the fathers. It says, the Gemara says, that everyone at the hour of the morning will be asked 3 questions. Did you set up time to learn? Did you have a chance to learn Torah? And I was in business, sincere, and so the Sato Be'emunah. And I was your faith and trust and the coming of Mashiach. Tesis is asking from a few spots in Shas, questioning what is the first question about business or about learning Torah. And it says that when a person is asked, did you learn Torah? How is your Amunah? Amunah is complete. Complete. Did you have a chance to learn Torah? Busy. Busy? Not busy. What's busy? If your Amunah is complete, start with to deprive yourself from that. So it goes hand in hand. So that's why we are going to be machazik, all of you, and to the ladies, to the dear ladies, I want to say, we just celebrated Matan Torah, and by Matan Torah, the Rabbi Shalom said to Moshe, before anything else, speak to the ladies. With the ladies, you'll be able to accomplish more. Forgive me, man. Why? The Rabbi elaborated on that. Said, she could have an effect and an influence on the husband that he should set up time to learn Torah. You see, to say that after so many speakers, so I'll try to limit myself. They limited me already. But in general, in Sister Satan, I would like to elaborate a little bit about the concept. It's about family, purity, morality. You could see that the Rabbi Shalom permitted, not only permitted, commanded to erase his holy name in the past of Satan, to give it to drink at the time when we were testing this soil. It is to establish shalom bias, establish purity, establish morality. Anyway, at the end of Satan, it says here, at the end, by the conclusion, that the generation after the destruction of Beis HaMikdash, the generation started to go down spiritually. In many levels. By the end it says, when Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Mishimes Rabbi, Anivus, humbleness, Yerushalayim was gone. Bottled, nullified. Came Rabbi Yosef and said, wait. Don't say about Anava. Don't say there was no more Anava. I am here. No, what do you say on that? This itself doesn't smell with Anivus. He says, don't say that there was no more Anivus, because I am here. There are many explanations of that. Some Meforshim are saying that what he meant to say, if you see, if Avraham, this is Anivus, he said, if people could take me for a robe, if people take me for a Rosh Yeshiva, the way I am, it shows that the world is plenty unknown here. Understand? Then it means also to say that he says, it is now over, because you see another for me. By the way, there was a Gemara. It says that in a certain Kehillah, they were looking for a leader. However, they found two great candidates. One was Rabbi, the greatest Avraham, and the other one was Rabbi Yosef. And then they decided, Rabbi was very harif, sharp, profound. Rabbi Yosef was phenomenal, a boki. So they decided, let's take the boki. Achel tzrichin, the more the chita. But Rabbi Yosef said, well, Rabbi, as long as Rabbi is with us, I will not be Rosh Yeshiva. No, this doesn't show you. Anivus, and even more so says the Gemara, that when Rabbi became Rosh Yeshiva, and Rabbi Yosef was acting very plain, simple, even when he needed a physician. He didn't, at that time was doctors used to come home visits. He didn't want to show any godless. So still he says, so you take Gayavaono, but not comparing to Rabbeinu HaKodesh. Because Rabbeinu HaKodesh, it depends who is our owner, you understand? The Novi says, Al Yishalel HaChochom B'Chochmosei, HaGiver B'Gurosei, Osher, those who are rich, well-to-do, but don't be arrogant. He doesn't say, Al Yishalel HaChapsin B'Chapsinusei. You understand? Rabbi Yosef says, comparing to Rabbeinu HaKodesh was so well-to-do financially. You remember, but Rashi says, Shnei Geim B'Midner, Rabbi and Antoninus. He was so, and he was a descendant of David HaMelech, and he was the Nosi of him, and he was still such a great honor. So that's why he says, to Rabbi Sandover, you cannot compare. Adon Eloheinu Harufa u'Zidon Lo M'Sirta Seite. Adon Lo M'Sirta Seite, Gado Halom, Daiton Lo M'Sirta Seite, Gedaiton Lo Please slash in your own ships and say to please slash in your own. Lead all more days, lead all more roads. It means you'll come back to you. You're not letting you, you'll come back to you. You want to, I will alone ships, please back alone. Try to alone ships and say to alone. Try to alone. Please slash in your own ships and say to please slash in your own. Leave all more days, leave all more roads. I don't alone ships, say to right. Father, alone, like alone ships, say to right. Alone. Please slash in your own. It's just to say that please slash in your own, leave all more days, leave all more roads. By the way, you should know that with Mr. Schulman, we made already, it's about 5-6 years, I think, and we made already a few years, we're only quiet, we start taking without publicity. You want to know how to do everything, you take the horse over and say the very about that, we'll tell you one of them about. Now give a look at this. You heard of Rabbi? How do you like that? How do you like his songs? Rabbi had 10 songs, huh? Would you like to sit by Shabbos table with such a minion? Anile Rabbi, Romy Rabbi, Nachman Rabbi, Ahoy Rabbi, Avamori Rabbi, Afro Rabbi, Rory Rabbi, Sofa Rabbi, Ado Rabbi, Ru Rabbi. The commentators say he was there to have such a minion, Tamil Rabbi, because he was always supporting Limud Torah, and especially whenever it was a siyum, he sponsored it. That was this. I know Elena Zivos Yehoshua, Bifino, Gizama Beit Yisrael, Vinye Golon Anachnu, Mitzatzion Tzatzion Beit Yisrael, Golon Yevish Maralem Zivoseva, Beit Razmeni, Mitzatzion Gileo Mili, Ili Mitzatzion Gileo Mali, Leon Yeshka Gileo Mili, Bo Hapa Muel Bino Vitalo, Omino Salvador, Media Manamo Muel Hino Yavsi, the Santo came on each of his however, but the Santo came on each of his Show Machine and Bay Machine, all Machine with the Hotel Machine and the door to tell you. All now made a bay on me, all now made a cabin spark, they are made a cabin spark. One of what's in the what's in high in the moon, what's in the showers, part of him to read the showers, as you know, the middle of the nail and never knew life. Change the time of the side, the situation, get that ring, last thing, the sifters, the story of Ellie, and Simon, Leonard Golami, Nishma Blancis and Kai, Solim Santi Hotel Diabo, Usfus. Kola Tanoi na Mehoi, Tamila Mahoni, Yami Diozari, Soitomus, Atila Mipi, and Diazari, Dizevazari Avilo, Isaimi. As we told you before, that the Torah is always accompanying us. Bisalecho, Tam Meiso, Bishol Becho, Kishmir Alecho, Yakisation seems amazing, Kishmir you will never receive what they find. Eirech Yamin Dimino, Bismillah Yishalachom. You should all be what Hashem well to do, financially well to do, but you should know what is priority and what is secondary. Eirech Yamin, that's the Torah, Dimino. You should have Ashirit, but you should know this is secondary. Eirech Yamin Dimino, Bismillah Yishalachom. You know, you always want to meet on the road talking about children. It's not always father, she may have no one go to the other one. He has to go there for healing. I even in the high, the whole base is loyal. Van Golo is Van Gori, in one way. Salam salam bin Bushavri, Libo Moshe, you put on Hamasalam Dolman me. I soil the Deva, the Mississippi, the Commandos can be Haiso, give us Rodin, Gulasavasa, Yoli Pay, Slomberabo, Kino, the Hill of Rapin, kind of living the Ovivo, follow. You put my window, Shmai, you are baby. You shall have him, Shmai, Rapin, Molino, I'll go to soil, you are baby. The children of Remo, we are children of Molino. Holy soil, you will be. Amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Gurari. Rabbi Gurari and his chavrusa, Mr. Shulman, have been learning for over 8 years now, and I'm very grateful for him to dedicate his time to also be a JNet volunteer among the other many significant responsibilities that he has. Thank you so much, Rabbi Gurari. We'd now like to acknowledge and appreciate our chavrusa of the year. Walking up and down Kingston Avenue, I've met and recruited many of you here, and have had many more people respectfully decline. When I met Rabbi Yoel Chazan the first time 6 years ago on Kingston Avenue, he had just gotten married 2 weeks before. And he had asked if he could get back to me in a couple months when things had settled down. A typical politely declining answer that I had been used to. I was very pleasantly surprised when 2 months later I got a call from him asking him to volunteer, asking that he volunteer to study with someone, and he was set up with Alex Berbair, a PhD student in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Hi, my name is Alexander Berbair. I live in Belo Horizonte in Brazil. I do medical research. I am a stem cell researcher. I was born in Soviet Union in 1986. My parents found professor positions in Brazil in a very far city called Fortaleza. At my home in Fortaleza, where we lived with my parents, me, my sister, and my parents, we didn't know much. Although we thought that we were the most religious family in the town, many of the things that we were doing at our home, now I know that they were not correct. For instance, we thought that every chicken, every cow will be kosher. I didn't know that you need to have a special shchita to become kosher, or a special way that we kill the animal to become kosher. We never mixed milk and meat, or ate shrimps or pork or these kind of things, because we knew this. But several other things that we didn't know, we didn't keep just because we didn't know. The first time that I went to shul in Chabad, I brought all the religious Jewish items that I had with me, that I knew that probably I need them in the shul. So I brought a siddur that my father gave me, I brought a talis that my father gave me, and also a tefillin. However, I brought it on Friday night, so I brought it kind of to the service, and I just brought it feeling. Now I know that it will be muktzah, but I didn't know anything at the time. And I was trying to be the most religious that I could. After I spent around 2 years in São Paulo, I was in the stage of my career to start doing PhD. And I found one place in North Carolina to do my PhD there in neuroscience. When I first arrived to North Carolina, and I found in the internet that there was a Chabad in Greensboro that was about 50 minutes drive from where I lived, I went to this Chabad. They received me very nicely. It was Yosef and Inzi Plotkins that were young shluchim that just came to Greensboro a few months before this, and they really became my family. So Yosef proposed that a great thing would be to try JNet, that I will be able to study with a partner. So this was the way that I got connected with Rav Yoel Chazan from Manchester, that now lives in Crown Heights. And so he was my partner in study. He was teaching me so many things that I didn't know. And sometimes we will even just talk about life or things from life, and he will help me in few things. He will tell me stories of his life, and we even became so friends that when we came to live in the Bronx, in New York, when I got married, Rav Yoel and his wife and his children, they even came to spend a Shabbos with us. We also came many times to spend Shabbos with them in Crown Heights, so we became really friends. And the learning was a great experience and was a great thing for me. So we came to Brazil, to a city that I have a tenured professor position. I have a big lab of around 20 people. Here we do medical research with stem cells, cancer research. We study several diseases. and we try to progress with this medical research. I believe that both learning in JNet and just generally Jewish learning, it kind of guided my research and directed me. And this learning will bring some type of energy to my day, to my week. I would like to thank so much the Plotkins family, Rav Yosef Plotkin, Rav Yoel Chazan, the whole JNet, Rav Yehuda Dukes, and the whole Chefrusas from JNet that do such a great job and make important changes in the life of so many people around the world. So I would like to thank all of you, and you really made a change in my life. So I'm very thankful, and this is a great thing that you guys invented.
We'd like to ask Rabbi Chazan to come up and receive the JNet Chavrusa of the Year award. The award reads, JNet is proud to recognize Rabbi Chazan Chavrusa of the Year, June 17, 2019, Yudal Sivan 5779. Thank you so much, Yoel. We would like to conclude the program by asking Rabbi Chai Cohen to come up and draw the winning raffle name from our Shavuos learning campaign. As you know, we have learning campaigns throughout the year where we send out a specific mimer or study material to learn. And the last one was just in honor of Shavuos. And so we would like to draw the winning raffle ticket right here from the people who, from everyone who submitted their doch and their name for studying in this campaign.
Okay.
The winner is Ori Cascetta from Miami, Florida. Congratulations, Ori. We will be sending you your prize in the mail. Sorry that you weren't able to be here tonight to receive in person. So I would like to thank everyone who helped make this dinner possible. Rabbi Shalom Bar Baumgarten, the Jewish Children's Museum, Chabad.org with their help for the online live stream, Jem for the clip of the Rebbe, which we unfortunately weren't able to get working, but they did do their part in getting it for us. Ben Shimon Studios for the lighting, Rabbi Mendy Yarmo for the video, Rabbi Levi Kotlarski, Rabbi Nachum Shapiro, Mendy Kolsky for coordinating the event. And I would also like to thank my wife Sarah for hanging in there and putting up with all the mishigas associated with it, making a dinner, and for sharing also her beautiful music, which you heard during the during this rolling video while you were having dinner. On the way out, make sure if you're all the volunteers here are entitled to receive the book, The Daily Wisdom 2, as a gift for your dedication. Thank you so much for volunteering. We are also having a $10,000 raffle on Tesvav Tammuz, July 18th. For those of you who are able to, this is a way to participate in JNet not just as volunteers, but also in the capacity of Zevulun and helping us do even more. I hope you enjoyed the evening. Please do not forget a bracha achrona. We'll be having a mezuzah shortly. And B'ez Hashem, we will very soon complete our shluchas here and be zocheh zen zeh mit Rabbi Dalamata, B'mheira b'yameinu. Amen.